guys, it's Ariel
And Jason.
from Fix My Books, and today we are continuing our video series on how to close a CCPC, and this is part 2, board and shareholder resolutions. So,
A resolution authorizing the dissolution. A resolution authorizing the dissolution is a formal decision made by the board of directors of a corporation to dissolve the company. This resolution is a necessary step in the legal process of winding up the corporation's affairs and ceasing its existence as a legal entity. So just basically, it is a document that says, hey, we're going to close our company.
So the resolution authorizing the dissolution must include a title, a preamble, and authority. So basically, you have to cite the relevant sections of the corporation's governing statute that authorize the board to propose the dissolution.
So resolution text should also include the decision to dissolve the corporation, obviously. Number 2, authorization for the officers or directors to take all necessary steps to effect the dissolution, including filing the required documents with the appropriate government authorities. 3, instructions for the distribution of the corporation's remaining assets after the payment of all debts and liabilities. That's an important one. Remember that. And number 4, effective date. Specify the date on which the resolution is passed, and then obviously the signatures of the directors or whoever voted. And I'll very clearly, make sure you have a date on this. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense.
So this is an example clause of what this should
kind of
look like, right? Again, this is an example. You cannot copy paste this and then go back and say, you said, So just look at this, and then we'll show you an exact sample from a government website of kind of the layout of what
they want to see.
Yeah, of what they want to see. So it should say something like, whereas the board of directors of Fix My Books,
or whatever
company has determined that it is in the best interest of the corporation as its shareholders to dissolve the corporation. So be it resolved that the corporation be dissolved in accordance with the provisions of the Canada Business Corporations Act / applicable Provincial Corporations Act, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And you can see how it says that they have to take all the necessary steps to effect the dissolution of the corporation.
And that the last one as well, the remaining assets of the corporation after the payment of all debts and liabilities should be distributed to the shareholders in accordance with their respective rights and interests.
I think we also mentioned this in the previous video where it depends on how much you own of the corporation, in terms of the shares, that's how they're going to distribute that.
If you're the only shareholder, then obviously things like this are not going to impact you as much. But if you're one of 10 shareholders and you all proportionally own different amounts and it's not equal, then the splitting up of the remaining assets and paying off the debts and liabilities is going to look quite different, and this paragraph may be enormous. It may be very, very specific.
Okay, so we'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so this is a sample of what a resolution looks like. So this comes from the BC government website. We'll link it down below so you can go to it and see a copy, but
you can see it's kind of just fill in the blanks and then put in your own information there. Obviously, you should go to a lawyer to go have this drafted so that it's properly done, and you're not just relying on fragmented information from all over the place, which isn't specific to your situation.
Again, this is not legal advice. We're just showing you, samples for demonstration purposes. You can search this very easily. I think you can buy some templates online, but again, do so at your own risk, because it's just a template. It's not custom to your situation.
Especially if you have other shareholders. Don't do this. If you have multiple shareholders, they may not be happy with you doing it this way. They may want you to go to a lawyer.
So this is, kind of what it looks like. And then this is straight from Corporations Canada in terms of the verbiage that they want, resolution of the director of the corporation.
And then you've got on the right here, page 48, so Section 2 is organizational resolutions of the shareholders, and it kind of just outlines like what they want in there. Again, it's very similarly worded, and you can look at this document. We can link it down below as well, and you can have a general idea of what you need to put in it.
Okay, so next is you have to obtain shareholder approval for the dissolution. So the shareholder approval for the dissolution is typically obtained through a special resolution passed at the shareholders' meeting. The process involves calling a meeting of the shareholders, providing notice of the meeting, and obtaining the required majority vote in favor of the dissolution.
And if you've ever owned shares in a company, like usually US stock, something like that, you'll get these emails occasionally like, oh, there's a vote coming up, very similar to that. So they'll send out some information to you, probably a prospectus, and you would vote, or someone else would vote on your behalf if you are not intending to vote.
So what if I own, let's say, one Amazon share, even if it's just one?
Yes, even if you own one Amazon share, because it gives you the right to vote on something, you can vote.
Oh, okay, sure.
Will it make a difference? Not really.
Okay. Okay.
So documents needed: notice of meeting, proxy form, and special resolution. And I kind of touched on proxy form before. A notice of the shareholders' meeting must be sent to all shareholders entitled to vote. The notice should include the date, time, and place of the meeting, as well as the purpose of the meeting, i.e. to consider and vote on the dissolution of the corporation. So just like I said before, very similar to when you own stock in a US company or even Canadian company, you'll receive these in the mail, or they used to receive them in the mail. Now you usually get them via email or in your brokerage. Proxy form. A proxy form may be provided to allow shareholders who cannot attend the meeting to appoint someone else to vote on their behalf. This is very standard, so most of you probably have owned shares at some point, and you've probably never ever voted, unless you are quite a large shareholder. But if you just own stock, you probably never voted, and this is the stuff that you'd usually get in the mail and you ignore. And that's what that is. And then someone else in the company will vote on your behalf, and that will usually just be pushed through. So the last one is special resolution, a draft of the special resolution to be passed by shareholders. The resolution should include the same elements as the board resolution, but must be approved by the shareholders.
Okay. So which shareholders need to provide this approval? So the approval must be obtained from the shareholders who are entitled to vote on the dissolution. Typically, this includes all holders of voting shares. So there's actually voting versus non-voting shares. We don't want to get into that, but like if you have voting shares, then you are entitled to vote. So the specific requirements for approval may vary depending on the corporation's governing statute and its articles of incorporation, but generally a special resolution requires the approval of at least 2/3 or sometimes 3/4 of the votes cast by shareholders present in person or by proxy at the meeting.
So this would also be in your shareholders agreement. Usually when you form a company, you have a shareholders agreement, and if you've got multiple shareholders of your sold shares before, you probably have one of these agreements, and you'd have to look in that agreement to see what this clause specifically says. If you just started a company and you don't have a shareholders agreement, then probably you're just following the basic laws, which are from Corporations Canada, from the acts, and that's what you'd just be going off, and it'd probably be similar to this here.
Okay, so best practices. So clear communication, so ensure that the notice of the meeting and the resolution are clear and provide all necessary information to the shareholders. Next is legal compliance, so verify that the process complies with the corporation's governing statute and its articles of incorporation. Third is record keeping. Keep detailed records of the meeting, including the minutes, attendance, and the results of the vote. And then also, again, please seek professional advice. Consider seeking legal advice to ensure that all legal requirements are met and the dissolution process is carried out correctly. Again, this video is not legal advice. It is just for general information purposes.
And even if you have a single shareholder company and it's just you, go consult a lawyer to make sure that you can follow the practices and procedures correctly, so you aren't just doing this by yourself. This is just meant to be a very vague and general guide, so you know what to look for when you do approach a lawyer and whether or not the lawyer is also doing it within the guidelines. And you can ask them questions, say, well, what about this? What about that? Are we, following this? Are we following that?
So this is the part 2 in our video series. There are going to be 6 parts, and next week we will be doing part 3,
which is settling financial obligations, which is probably one that you should really watch.
Yep. So part 3 is settling financial obligations, and after that it would be filing the final tax return. So I would say those are one of
the most important
parts of.
You can't really close the corporation without doing that stuff.
So yeah, stay tuned for that. And those will be coming up in the video series. Once again, this is Ariel
and Jason
from Fix My Books. Have a great day.